Hi, everybody. Welcome to the QB School. I am JT O'Sullivan. Today, we are talking 15 tips for quarterbacks going into training camp. Fired up for this one. Let's get it going. Welcome to the QB School. So the number one tip that we're going to talk about going into training camp for quarterbacks is an improvement mindset. So what exactly does that mean? That means that it's less about every single thing being perfect and much more about you getting better as quickly as possible and going from really beyond the scope and lens of just you, but getting everyone better as quickly as possible, whether that's the perimeter, the skill unit, the offensive unit, the entire team, everyone moving towards that improvement mindset. But it starts, in my opinion, with the quarterback modeling the way. So that can be focusing on your technique, spending a little bit more time in front of the team, doing whatever you need to do to get yourself ready to get better and get better quickly. It's not about staying the same. It's not about what you did in the offseason, coming in whatever kind of shape you're in, whatever you weigh, your body fat, all those types of things. Those are great. Those are important metrics to hit. But now we're in training camp. We're getting closer and closer to the season. That improvement mindset and being able to hold it consistently, not being able to just focus on it in individual or just focus on it in the meeting room. It's about taking it to each and every drill, each and every meeting, each and every meal where you get an opportunity to interact and influence your teammates. I think an improvement mindset in camp is a great trampoline to go on and give yourself an opportunity to have an outstanding fall. The number two tip for quarterbacks going into training camp for me is to take the improvement mindset and kind of shift it a little bit towards really being intentional with earning trust. And this can mean earning the trust of a number of different things, not just the quarterback room, the offensive unit, the wide receivers, the offensive line. It can really, and probably most importantly, means earning the trust of the play caller and or the head coach, because the quarterback position is so decision-making oriented and you really have the whole organization, the team in your hands with the ball, to earn the trust that they know that not only have you put in the work, but that you care and that you've proven, you have evidence, the track record, the film, the daily practice, the every single drill. You've earned the trust to be the decision maker when it matters most. And I think that mindset to say, hey, maybe why does this coach not get along with me? Why am I not seeing eye to eye? I got to go out there and earn the trust of these people. And the higher levels you go, there's significant dollar values associated with earning that trust. But even at lower levels, it's that important of a position to be the decision maker, to decide where the ball goes, where the ball doesn't go, when the ball is not put into harm's way, when it is, where it is. All those types of things, to me, take significant trust. And this is one of the most important things a quarterback can do. Once a quarterback earns the trust of their coaches, their teammates, their peers, everything else now becomes a little bit easier. So just going in there with the mindset that I'm going to earn the trust of everyone associated with this football team, this organization. Next one here, number 3. This is one of my favorites. And this is one of the ones that I kind of fell into later on in my career. This idea being that not only am I going to have an improvement mindset, I'm going to kind of earn trust, but that I'm going to elevate my teammates. I'm going to elevate this team. I'm going to elevate this huddle. Back in the day, if you're a team that huddles, when I walk into whatever meeting, meal, locker room, drill, rep, I'm elevating the group. I want them to feel like, oh yeah, we got a good chance. Now, was that always the case? Probably not. But in my mind, I wanted to work towards it. And when I was playing my best, when I was coaching my best, I felt like that was really something that you can sense and feel. It might not be tangible. You might not be able to see it, but you really can kind of touch the vibe, the energy that you have when you elevate everyone that you're around. And I think that's one of the most important kind of quote unquote it factors for a quarterback, to be able to say, hey, maybe some guys do it unintentionally, but I think the good ones, the ones that do it for a long time, are very intentional about elevating their teams, their units, their offenses, their opportunities to go out there and influence the group. And I think if you're intentional with the ability to go in there, hey, I'm going to elevate my teammate. I'm going to make this teammate better. I'm going to make this unit better. I'm going to do everything I can to help this group get better. That goes a hell of a long way for you to becoming the best quarterback that you can be. Next one, number 4, We're going to talk about understanding the optics of the quarterback position. Now, this one took me a long time because I'm not the greatest body language guy in the world, whether playing or coaching, but just understanding the optics of playing quarterback, meaning that everyone's watching you, whether you have the ball, whether you don't have the ball, whether you're walking the halls on campus, whether you're going to a meal, whether you're at your car, whether you're in the community, everybody knows who the quarterback is. And this idea being to not only see it as a negative, like, oh, I got to be on guard, don't want to post this, I don't want to post that. Use it to your advantage. Understand that you can go out there and sell the values that you're trying to instill in your unit, your team, your position group, your offense, your program, and to really embrace it and use it for all the influence that it can be, whether it's, hey, I don't really want to stay after practice and get extra reps in with this cat who's never going to play, but the team is going to see me do it. Hey, maybe I don't want to come in early. I got to sleep in. I got to stay late. People are going to see you do this. And yeah, it might be a little artificial, but it matters to a lot of people. It sure as hell matters to the coaches, the ability to see you put in the work, for your teammates to see, oh, his car's here. Oh, he's been here. I always think back to that Costanza episode where Costanza leaves his car at work and everyone thinks he's a great employee all of a sudden. There are some artificial elements to it, but I think you're being naive if you don't think that the optics matter to the quarterback position. So get the extra work in, make sure you're getting the extra work, stay after, ask questions, stay after practice, put in extra work with your teammates. All those things compound to allow you to have a great quarterback experience. My next quarterback tip for training camp is, this is one I think most quarterbacks, specifically at a high level, kind of do naturally or instinctively, but it is to compete in everything. And I mean every fucking thing, from every drill, every rep, every meeting, everything you can possibly think of. Who's going to win running to the next drill? Who's going to win getting back to the next drill? Who's going to set the tone, the vibe of the room, of the competition? If you're in a competition, if you're not in a competition, setting the vibe, the energy for the entire offensive unit. All those things matter. And I think you're competing in everything. Whether you want to think that you're not, you are competing. Whether your competition or your replacement is already there, if you're already on a team established somewhere, or if they want to recruit someone to replace your ass. You are constantly competing. And so to embrace it and thrive in it and really enjoy it. And I think the people that enjoy it are the ones that last the longest and have the most fun with it. But if you don't think you're competing in every drill, every warm-up, every one-on-one, every route on air, every team rep, every 7-on-7 rep, every blitz pickup rep, every rep, you're being naive. And so to take that mindset that I'm going to compete in everything and I'm not going to turn it off. I will say that one of the things that helped me the most as I played a little bit longer was the ability to amplify it. So to turn it on and off. I didn't like living at 10 in the competition world, but I did like the ability to, okay, I'm walking on the practice field, we're ramping this up. Or, hey, I'm in the meeting, I got to dial it up. As opposed to I'm going to go take a nap in camp, or, I'm just waking up. Those types of things. I like the ability to be able to amplify it on and off, almost like a volume dial, to be able to turn this sucker up when I need to ramp it up and compete at the absolute highest level, but to realize at practice and at preseason games and at scrimmages and at games where this sucker is at max volume, and to be able to practice, to be able to get it up for those elements, to be able to know that I can sustain that level of energy, emotion, intensity, really helped me, I feel like, survive a number of really tough camp situations. Next tip here, this is a little bit of a shift here, talking about something that was really, I don't remember exactly where it started. I can probably distill the fear of it, but the number 6 tip here is just to hydrate. Hydrate. I was one of the guys that walked around with a gallon of water when I was younger, just always terrified that I was going to be the cat that tapped at the end of a game, cramping, and had to come out. I don't know if it was because I had a couple buddies that it was issues with, but I always lived in fear of that. And I feel like it was one of those things that I kind of fell into a little bit, being fortunate with being able to stay really hydrated all the time, be intentional with it. I think guys are better about it, knowledge about it, much more now so than it was maybe back in the day. But to be intentional with it, I feel like I always felt better. Anytime you got to try to get hydrated for a game, usually it's too late anyways. And to just stay hydrated during camp is something that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, to rehydrate after practice, but if you get in the habit of it and it's important for you to feel good and feel healthy, I always thought that being really intentional with staying hydrated was one of those things that I got really fortunate to kind of carry through my entire career. So get after it, stay hydrated. This next tip really correlates a little bit more to a more meeting-centric environment, but I use it on the practice field as well. And it really is just ask questions. And not only ask questions, but demand detailed answers. I think one of the best questions to ask specifically in the football world is what if? What if we get this? What if we get that? What if we get pressure? What if we get man? What if we get zone? What is our plan? What are we supposed to do with the ball? I wanted to know what our answers were for the offensive system that I was in. And it might have pissed off maybe some quarterback coaches or coaches if they didn't necessarily have answers or thoughtful answers or answers that I respected with kind of pushbacks or nudges. But I really felt like it helped me make sense of the installs, the volume of offense that gets thrown at you really quickly, and then being able to go out there from the meeting to the practice field and execute it at a high level. I wanted to know what if. And so that mindset of what if, what happens with this, what happens with that, and really it can be as simple, if you're just starting here, as what if we get open? What if we get closed? What if we get man? What if we get zone? What if we get pressure? What if we get zero? All those types of things can allow you to then play faster at the line of scrimmage. And so it wasn't just, hey, ask questions. Like that's kind of like a generic thing you would hear at like some random webinar. This is much more ask questions. What if was my question that I was like my default, but then demand detailed answers. And if you don't get detailed answers, push back. It's okay to ask the same question a different way. It's okay to, maybe ruffle some feathers in a quarterback room where you're like, hey, I don't know if I don't see it like that. What if we get this? What if we get that? What do you want to do with the ball? Those types of things, working through the mental gymnastics of playing quarterback at a high level, give you the opportunity to then go play fast at the line of scrimmage. In that same vein, the next tip that I'm going to offer is to be intentional with holding your teammates accountable. And it can be more than just your teammates. It can be your coaches, but hold your teammates to a high standard, to whatever your standard is. If your team standard isn't high enough, hold them to your standard and elevate your standard. So for me, that can be as simple as, hey, making sure that we're lined up in the correct spot, making sure that we're hustling to the line of scrimmage, making sure that we're hustling back in every drill, making sure that whatever your organization, your team, your program's goals are, that you not only are modeling the way, but you're also bringing people with you, whether you have to pull them or push them, that you are holding people accountable so for that they are all part of the same team. There's no weakest link. Now, there's certainly weakest links, but that you're going to maximize everyone's potential opportunity to thrive in your program, your offensive unit. And I think it's important for a quarterback to visibly hold people accountable. Now, you don't have to be disingenuous. If you're not a loud, confrontational guy, you don't necessarily have to get in someone's face and yell, but you can pull them aside and say, hey man, we're trying to do this at a higher level. Hey, this is what the standard is here. Hey, this is what my expectations are for you. If you want the ball in this concept versus this coverage, I need you to be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there and not fool the quarterback. All those types of things can be gentler ways than motherfucking someone in the middle of a drill. And so finding that balance, whatever that is for you, to be able to hold them accountable so that they can help you create the scaffolding that will allow you to go out there and thrive at the quarterback position. Next tip here, number 9, we're going to talk about preparing through practice for the game and not just to survive practice. Now, this isn't easy to do early in camp. Everyone's fired up, out there early, be the first person at the first practice out there, half hour early, trying on your new cleats. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about week 2, week 3, middle of the week, dog days, being able to not just survive practice, but take every opportunity, because there are only so many opportunities to really practice football in a team environment. So you're taking every rep to get you ready to play whenever you're going to play, Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays. Whenever, taking those practice reps and using them not for survival. If you're a bottom of the roster guy, bottom of the depth chart guy, not just to move up, but to have that long range vision, that tunnel vision to say, hey, everything I'm doing is so that I perform at an absolute max capacity when I get my opportunity in game. What if I never get an opportunity in game? Well, we probably got to work backwards here a little bit to be able to make sure you get an opportunity eventually. But that idea being that everything I'm doing is so that I play better in game, not just survive in practice. Now, will it be every single thing? No, you should absolutely experiment with things, and we'll talk about that later. But this idea being that don't just survive these camp practices. Use them to prepare yourself to play well in the game. That's the most important part. Yeah, you have to play well enough in practice to get that opportunity, but it's all about the in-game production and to use those critical reps. Damn, especially if you're a guy who's not getting a whole hell of a lot of reps, you're competing for a spot, every rep matters. But realizing that every rep matters, not just for you to get a completion in some random 7-on-7 drill in the middle of, an early morning practice. It's to get that completion thrive in game and to hold that mentality that we're not just surviving practice. We're not just competing for practice sake. We are getting ready to play the game at the highest level possible. The next tip here, number 10, is going to be your pre and post practice routine are up to you. Okay, now you might not have ever had a coach tell you this before, but if you need to be warmed up or you have a specific arm routine, body routine, warm up that you need to do to make sure that you're ready to go at the start of camp, that's up to you. That is not up to the coach to hold you accountable to do that. You got to take some ownership in your performance, your preparation, to make sure that your ass is out there getting loose, doing the work that you need to do to make sure that you not only take care of yourself, but are thriving, getting stronger as you go through the process. You don't want to deteriorate based on not being totally warmed up or cooling down properly. And so there are a bunch of different ways to do it, whether you do the Tom House thing, there's a bunch of different dynamic warm-ups that you can do for your core body temperature, for your arm, for your shoulder, for whatever, both pre and post. That is up to you to hold yourself to that standard. Don't make some coach, the villain because he let me out of meetings too late. All right, well, talk to the coach, tell him, communicate, earn his trust. Say, hey, coach, I got to get out there 20 minutes early to do my warm-up. Or, hey, I need to make sure that I have enough time after practice to be able to stretch and cool down and do the things that I need to do to take care of my body, my arm. That is up to you as a player. Whether you're at Pop Warner, whether you're at Scholastic, whether you're in college football, whether you're in the league, all those things are up to you. It's your responsibility, in my opinion, to make sure that you're ready to go and taking care of yourself after practice. So this video is probably not going to go into the detail of what that dynamic warm-up could or should look like, but that information is available nowadays. Go find it, be intentional. Next tip here I'm going to talk about is probably going to go into a little bit more detail than some would say and just say, hey, be really accurate with the ball. Yeah, no shit, be accurate with the ball. What does that mean? That means hold yourself to the standard of putting the ball exactly where you want to all the time. And so for me, I was always about trying to put it up on the cat's face. Some people will say like the throat, the target area, whatever you want to say. I really, as I played longer, got away from, I was always pissed at myself if the ball was ever below someone's waist. Now, you obviously don't want to sky mail it either and put it, into the front row, but there's that fine line with being able to be accurate, be intentional, be precise with your ball control, and don't just be happy that the guy dove and caught your pass. Be really intentional with the ball location, and it can be whatever you want it to be. I'm not saying just because I said I want to put it on the cat's throat or on the cat's face, like that's what I say on this channel. Do whatever your coach tells you to do. I don't think there's one right way to do it, but be really intentional with missing small. The miss radius, I think, is one of those things that gets undercoached. It's not good enough just to be able to get a completion. The guy dives or he catches it on his knees and he's down there. We're looking to be really intentional and specific and precise with our ball location. So for me, it was put it up on the cat's face, put it where you want to, when you want to, all the time, specifically when there's no defense. And that comes from a lot of different things, but being really intentional and focused on that in training camp was something that I thought went a long way for me to be more and more confident spinning the rock. This next tip here, number 12, is one of those things that is near and dear to my heart because I feel like I developed this kind of thought process as the longer and longer I played. And that tip is to experiment with anticipation. This is where you can really experiment with your craft. Now, do you want to do it in the most important 2-minute situation, weeks into camp? Probably not. But in one-on-one, in routes on air, experiment with anticipation. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about with anticipation, throw that thing at the back of your drop, whatever your drop is supposed to be, before the wide receiver is turning around looking at you, and experiment. And you can tell the wide receiver or the eligibles, hey, I'm going to experiment with some anticipation, see how early I can let this thing go, and see what it feels like. See what kind of touch, how much you need to drive the ball. You need to get it up and over second level defenders, those types of things. Experiment, be intentional with the anticipation. Hopefully you have coaches that drill that into you as well. But if you don't, you can individually experiment with it. Maybe you do it after practice. Maybe it tethered is into the optics of playing the position. But experiment with the anticipation so that it's not the first time you ever did that throw in a game. That's the worst feeling. You never want that to be the case. You always want to have said, hey, I've made that throw many times before in practice, whether it's after practice, in a drill, in one-on-ones. And this is the time. Training camp is the time. Practice is the time to experiment with anticipation and what that looks like. Tip number 13. Now, this is probably one of those tips as we get closer and closer to the end that you maybe haven't heard before. This is one that I take anecdotally from my own experience. Do less throws in practice. Play less catch in training camp. I was the type of guy who did whatever I thought was the best to be able to take care of my arm, but went through enough training camps, almost a year of my life in training camps, to realize that I was going to have some deterioration in my arm. And really the first thing to go for me was usually either my neck from getting hit or my forearm. I used to think I was almost going to bring a wooden spoon in here to show y'all, but my forearm sometimes would feel like I was throwing like with a wooden spoon. I just couldn't get the grip that I wanted, that I was used to. And I spent multiple off seasons trying to work on different ways to improve that, to be intentional with it. And the only time it ever worked where my arm felt like it was fresher at the end of training camp than it was at the beginning was when I was really intentional about making sure that I threw less. So less playing catch, less random throws to the other quarterbacks or to wide receivers on the side. If I wasn't in a rep, I wasn't going to throw it. I was going to make sure I was warm, ready to go, specifically when you're only getting 4 or 5 reps the whole day, or a handful of reps in each kind of drill, making sure that you're warm. Hell yeah. But I wasn't going to make 20 throws on the side to make sure I was warm. I was going to be really intentional with staying warm, but not overusing my arm so that I felt like I was at my best when it mattered most in the games. The number 14 tip here is one of those ones that is near and dear to my heart. I've talked about this tip before. I think it's relevant in this video. Reaffirm it. Probably the best advice I ever got in the league came from everyone's favorite Green Bay quarterback. I shouldn't say that. My favorite Green Bay quarterback growing up, Brett Favre. I was really struggling with one of the coaches on the staff, and he pulled me aside after one meeting. I think it was after a meeting, and told me essentially, you got to learn to overcome your coaching. And that really resonated with me. I wasn't going to let some coach impact my performance, whether I was frustrated with the opportunity or the communication or lack thereof. I was going to do me, and I was going to make sure that I was ready to play at my best when it mattered most. And so that really helped me kind of clear and let things fall away, all the bullshit that goes from relationships that you don't necessarily love on the coaching staff or people you got to deal with on a team. I was not going to let some coach be a distraction for me not playing at my best. And so I took that really for another, 7-8 years in my career. And it was really a important, this kind of ingrained value that I took to every organization. I knew what my standard was. I knew how I wanted to play. I knew what I thought I needed to do to be ready to go. And I wasn't going to let a coach's negative take on me, my evaluation, my performance impact what that looked like. And so I really appreciated Brett. I don't know if I ever told him that to his face, but that ability to just say, hey, you got to overcome your coaching, that can resonate with so many different people who are maybe frustrated in their situation, wherever you are right now. Maybe it's not this year. Maybe you love your coach. Maybe you love your play caller. But at some point during the season, you might have to overcome your coaching. It might not be the greatest call in the world for you. You might not be feeling great. You might have to do something that you don't want to do. And you got to overcome that coaching decision to be able to make sure that you thrive in your opportunity for your team. And maybe it's not this team. Maybe it's the next team. Maybe it's your next opportunity. But realizing that your performance is so important to you that you're not going to let some coach anchor you down and pull you to a tier that you don't want to be at. You're going to find a way to overcome your coaching and not let that be this kind of distraction and excuse for you not to play at your absolute best. And the last tip here is one of those ones that you might not want to hear. And I tread lightly as I give it, but the reality is that these tips are probably all too late if you haven't been doing this from jump. You're going to have to, these tips are incorporated into all preparation. You can certainly overlay it to camp, and I think that there's some value in kind of going back and revisiting them during a camp situation, but you can also insert them immediately into your off season. You can overlay these into the entire off season process and realize that it's probably already too late if you haven't, because I know guys at the highest level they've been doing all these things the entire off season. So if you all of a sudden get this panic, like, oh, no, I haven't been doing some of these, it's probably too late. And that's your situation now. But you can take this information and overlay it into your next offseason and realize that, oh yeah, I can get a huge head start on the competition, on everyone else who's not going at it with this kind of intentional kind of desire to improve, to earn trust, understands the optics, is experimenting with all these different things, is really detailed and precise, and wants to acquire all the information they can to play quarterback at a really high level. You can insert these things immediately. Now, you can certainly do them during camp, and I think that there is value. We'll see by what the comments are in this video. But you can also realize that there are some people at the highest levels that have been doing this for a long time. They've been doing it all year. In fact, it never stops. This is just their normal operating procedure. So to be able to take this information and overlay it to that will give you that much of a better offseason next time around. So that is a wrap. 15 tips for training camp really can be overlaid into all of the offseason world. Hopefully you got some value out of this. Hopefully you pulled a nugget or two that you can immediately insert into your process, into your training camp, and enjoy it and get better. Keep that thing going in the right direction. Thank you so much for hanging to the end. I will see you next time. Have a good one.